Welcome to the WP-Tonic This Week in WordPress and SaaS podcast, where Jonathan Denwood interviews the leading experts in WordPress, e-learning, and online marketing to help WordPress professionals launch their own SaaS.
Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic this month in WordPress and Tech. This is episode 781. This is one of the longest running, continuous running shows that specialise in the professional WordPress space. And I feel that way. It goes on and on and on. But we've got a great panel. We've got some great stories. We've got some great special guests. I'm going to let one of the special guests introduce themselves. Let's start with Katie. Katie, would you like to introduce yourself to the tribe?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Katie Keith, co-founder and CEO at Bantu Plugins. So we're a plugin company. We have 23 plugins at the moment, most of which are WooCommerce related.
Right. I've got my friend Tom. Tom, would you like to introduce yourself?
Tom Fanelli from Convesio, and we specialize in hosting scalable e-commerce and membership sites. Great to be here.
Oh, thank you, Tom. And I've got my friend Heather. Heather, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Heather Wild-Renzi. I am the CTO of The Difference Consulting, and I am the author of Birth of a Unicorn.
I've got there is only one, Spencer Foreman. Spencer, would you like to introduce yourself?
I feel like we're 2/3 of the way to a reunion of WordCamp. Tom, were you at WordCamp? Did I miss you at WordCamp?
I was, and
how did I miss that beard?
I don't know, man. I was all over the place.
It's a beast, isn't it? I'm really impressed with that beard.
I'm impressed. He's got by the way, very handsome black and white photo, because the hair and the beard, you look very distinguished. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. That's what
anyway, Spence from WPLaunchify.com, not drinking bourbon or bowling with Katie Keith, and not chilling with my man Kurt, but I wish I was.
And I've got my normal co-host of the other WP-Tonic WordPress podcast. I've got Kurt. Kurt, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely, Jonathan. Kurt Von Onen, own Mañana No Mas. We focus largely on membership and learning sites, and I work directly with WP-Tonic and Lifter LMS. And I must say, Tom's beard is impressive. I am jealous.
Yes, it's a beast, as we would say in London. It's a beast. So what we're going to be discussing in this show, listeners and viewers, well, we've got to be discussing some drama in the WordPress space. You know, what a big surprise. I'm calling it SéGate. We're going to be talking about Elon Musk and the new unofficial biography of him. We're going to be talking about Apple's latest event and a couple other WordPress stories. It should be a great show. Got a great panel, but before we go into the meat and potatoes, I've got a couple adverts from our major sponsors. We will be back in a few moments, folks.
Are you looking for ways to make your content more engaging? Sensei LMS by Automatic is the original WordPress solution for creating and selling online courses. Sensei's new interactive blocks can be added to any WordPress page or post. For example, interactive videos let you pause videos and display quizzes, lead generation forms, surveys, and more. For a 20% off discount for the tribe, just use the code WP-Tonic, all one word, when checking out, and give Sensei a try today.
We're coming back, folks. I just want to say we've got some great special offers from the sponsors, plus a curated list of the best WordPress plugins for any project that you might be building for clients or for yourself, stopping you from having to trawl the internet, saving you time. How considerate of me. To get all these goodies, all you have to do is go over to wp-tonic.com/deals. wp-tonic.com/deals, and you find all the goodies there. What more could you ask for? Probably a lot, but that's all you're going to get. So let's go into our first story, which is it was started off with a story on the Tavern. Developers claim damage trust following public confrontations with WordPress leadership and WPwatercooler, which is another WordPress podcast that aims at the professional market. One of the commentators then, they had a show afterwards, and one of the hosts of the show, Sari Reid, had a rant that went on for about an hour and 10 minutes, basically. So, Katie, I think we'll start with Katie. What did you make of it all? I am conflicted. I've never felt so conflicted about something in all my years, really. Oh, you're muted. I think Matt's muted you.
Sorry. Yeah, I know what you mean. It started off as a relatively sensible debate where people made some good points about the consequence of moving the plugin directory from .org and copying it onto .com and using it to upsell .com and the SEO implications. And that's fine. People can have a debate. And then it got nasty, didn't it? And Matt Mullenweg, basically, when somebody would make a criticism about this policy, he would attack them, well, their businesses, not personally, but he would do what wasn't a very professional attack on their businesses. So he seemed to be Googling people, and just looking for something wrong. Like, there was one person who had said that they had 100,000 installs, and he was like, no, you only have 900, really petty, like in the playground. There was another person who misspelt WordPress, which I know is a cardinal offense, but it didn't.
As a dyslexic, I would never do that. I would never spell it wrong, but there we go.
Yeah, but it was things like that. He was picking at people's businesses, and really great people, respect people in the community, instead of engaging with the debate. And that's led to a lot of loss of trust within the community, and thinking who's leading is who elected him. And Zach Katz wrote a very good blog post on his blog about how he feels about that, and in particular drawing attention to the fact that he said that Matt Mullenweg had broken the WordPress code of conduct and that therefore action should be taken, which is now officially being investigated. Apparently they've, in the last day, replied to the people who complained.
Well, they're going to hire the Seth Lord of WordPress, Otto, and they're going to get Otto to be the head of the investigation.
I don't know where the whistleblowing goes.
Oh, my God.
It evolved a lot, didn't it, into more and more controversy.
Which is not surprising, really. Heather, what did you make of all this, Heather? You're muted, Heather.
Yeah, I mean...
Oh, you're loud. You're loud.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Your mic.
Yeah, I'll move it farther away. I don't know. I mean, this WordPress community is kind of... Yeah. I think that I think they did some good SEO.
I think you're looking for the word bonkers, isn't it?
Well, no,
delicate.
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to pay the money to get themselves ahead in the search results, then it all comes down to money and who has it. So that's what it looked like to me.
All right. I was in a difficult position, Spencer, because obviously over the last couple of years, we've discussed the realities of this community. So in some ways, I was really shocked by what was said on the WPwatercooler, because they seemed to be surprised about the realities. But then it was I had a discussion with somebody else, and they pointed out that people are really, really passionate, and they really, really think it's a totally open source project, and they really donate a lot of time and energy. And I just felt I just had accepted the realities of the project almost 3 years ago, so I wasn't shocked at all. So I was a little bit, the whole thing puzzled me, but then it was pointed out to me other people hadn't, this is only my opinion, Spencer, hadn't accepted the reality of the project. Is that making sense, Spencer?
I mean, a couple things. Yes, but it's like historically, you have to go back to maybe like the Chris Pearson incident. Matt Mullenweg is Matt Mullenweg, and he's been bullshitting everybody in public since those days. I'm just going to call it as it is. The real Matt Mullenweg is not the guy who puts on the, you know, the facade of calm demeanor. So on a personality level, this incident triggered 2 or 3 other incidents. And there was, I'm mispronouncing her name, but one of the WordPress major contributors posted subsequently this, and he took a shit on her head in public. That's, by the way, French. But he did things that nobody should do to anybody in a contributor world. But to be the head of the project, the figurehead, he just took a shit on top of her head in public. And everybody, including people that we're familiar with, I think it was crystal clear he was off his medication or something, because I don't understand what led him to do that. It was so. I think that's the incident that Katie.
Oh, I know. I know.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that blocking her. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, but
it's called whiskey. It's called whiskey.
I like whiskey. It doesn't make me do that.
I like whiskey.
The subsequent thing, I think that's what Zach Katz was referring to, is that like that's the violation. So like just to bring it in for a landing, there's a couple things that are clear. A, we need to seek alternative ownership and leadership from within the .org community. It's just crystal clear, because we are at war for anybody who cares. Now, I'm going to clarify war. We're at war with what .com and Automatic and everybody else is doing, because their interests are clearly aligned in taking all of the assets and contributions that have been given under false pretenses, at least for the last few years. I mean, originally, I think it was sincerely, let's all go get it. But it's very clear the last 3-4 years, anybody who contributes to .org has rules for thee, but not for me. So you can't market yourself. You can't put your stuff in. You can't be indexed. You can't be found. Matt and everybody make rules and auto enforces it with a stick to cripple anybody in the repository or from doing this, or if you say the wrong word, then he goes out and publicly shames you. At the same time, they take all your shit and put it over in .org and get SEO benefits from all that comes from it. And then there was further things for many of the contributors where on .com, guess what there is when you go to the free plugins page? There's an upsell for Automatic products. Oh, big surprise right on the page. And you get WordPress.com hosting. Big surprise. So the solution to this is simple. It's not a war because we're completely empowered. Matt Mullenweg's Achilles heel is open source is open source. When we decide to lead ourselves and do what we want, and that's what I'm doing on my part of WordPress as a service, we can decide what the consumers get and how they get it, because we can take all the stuff that they do and use it the other direction. And that's what he's setting up, unfortunately. If anybody is awake, it is crystal clear that he has no intention of acting with good faith towards anybody who's a contributor. He does it for his friends, his favorite henchmen, and for whoever business associates are related to either Audrey Capital, Automatic, or his personal interests and whatever else is going on behind the scenes. And then he's also disingenuous as well about the tax benefits and so forth, because he started beating up people about how much their corporations contribute, including there was the other thing about the hosting. They pulled another host off of that page and put WordPress.com in there and like tried to claim that they're not taking tax benefits. So it just goes on and on. For me, I say it with like a little asterisk because I'm not surprised. I've been calling this since the early days because he's not really good to me at hiding it. But everybody thinks he's this like awesome human being. He's very, very flawed in the regard to how he portrays himself versus how he acts. And this is revealing the true thing.
Yeah, but most of us are very flawed though, aren't we?
I mean, we just, the big difference here is we can do stuff about this. This isn't licensing. It's not like Microsoft Windows 95 or something or Apple's licensed products. We can do stuff to counteract this.
Rightio. Sorry, Tom.
I got it.
Yeah, so I'm going to let you speak, Tom. I'm just going to put this to you, Tom. I agreed with a little bit. I agreed with about a third of what Spencer had to say, but I really don't see it as a win or lose situation. I really think the reality of Automatic taking almost $900 million of investment, getting close to $1 billion in six investment rounds is the reality. And .com, I would prefer .com to be a quality competitor to Squarespace than Wix, than what it is at the present moment. I just think he's got different buckets of individuals in the world, different constituencies that he has to play. Is this making any sense, Tom?
Well, you're sort of kind of bumping up against what I was going to say, which is, you had phrased something in that question about is this really open source? I mean, it's open source in the sense that you do, Spencer, have people like GoDaddy and, Newfold, Bluehost, those guys investing a significant amount of money to make WordPress their primary page builder and all that stuff. So you do have other companies doing that. And I do want to remind people that despite everything you said about, Matt, there is really no, it's not a person's implied right to have their plugin promoted by another commercial company like Automatic and WordPress.com. And it is open source, so it can be utilized by them just the way you had said, which I think it's an interesting idea to have another entity that's competing with Automatic almost in the WordPress space for investment and leadership. I'm just not so sure how much of a reality that'll be. The other thing too is, the alternative to this is look at what's happening with other open source platforms. They're dying. Okay. Joomla. Oh gosh, I don't even want to say. I don't want to name names because I'm going to get hate mail.
Drupal and Joomla.
Okay. I don't want to name names, but there are other open source platforms withering on the vine. Right. And one of the reasons WordPress is so good is because Automatic and these big behemoths have invested money into funding the open source developers. The alternative of this is a completely for-profit closed architecture system like a Wix and a Squarespace with no community and no developers. And so we're very unique in that, and I always am looking for alternatives that are at the scale WordPress is, but we're very unique in that way that it is an open source platform. You can take it and do whatever you want to do with it, but it's got a lot of investment dollars behind it for engineering resources that rival some of the investments that closed source companies are investing. And so when I read things about people some of the people's comments on that, one of the comments was someone was like, yeah, I gave up on WordPress back on version 5 when they mandated Gutenberg. Well, I mean, progress is gonna happen. It is going to be moved forward because these companies are funding open source developers to work on this, and there is an agenda.
So Heather, I know you've got to go pretty soon, but Heather, I think it's Matt's responsibility, because the one thing I do agree with Spencer's insights is I think Matt, a lot of this has been caused by him, and it was unnecessary. Because what do you think these people that have almost invested $900 million with Automatic, when you look at my understanding of the structure of the company structure, I was just told this, is it's very similar to the company structure of Facebook, i.e. that Matt has his share percentage has been diluted, but he has golden shares. So fundamentally, he has control of everything. But what do you think these people that invested $900 million are looking for?
I mean, they are looking for a way to say, like, you can't steal my work. I mean, I did this for the community and you're doing this for a profit. And I mean, even though doing this for the community may mean that they're also trying to get a profit. Like, some people are being boosted just because, and other people are being pushed down. And there's no rhyme or reason as to, like, who is being, like, decided as to being boosted or not. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's kind of like you have no control over what's going to be pushed or not. And if you don't have marketing money like Automatic does, then you're kind of stuck, even though you're paying for you're putting your resources, your time, and your money in your project, and then you still could get squashed by Matt's whole big thing. And people are confused as to, like, what's the difference between .com, what's the difference between .org, and it's always been a problem for people who are being pushed towards .org, where it's a do it for them kind of thing. It's such a complicated issue.
It is, but what I'd hope was just Jo Saffer, when she came on the scene, and she's the executive director of the WordPress project, a very pleasant woman. I interviewed her. I had a very direct interview. Some people said it was a bit too direct, but she seemed okay with it, and she seems a very nice individual. I'd hoped that she would have been able to clarify some of these issues. I was told that's what she wanted to do. Unfortunately, it hasn't panned out really. I don't know why. I have my own views. So, Kurt, it's a bit of a witch's brew, as we would say in the UK, really, isn't it?
Jonathan, I listen to everybody's perspectives, and hopefully my microphone's not too loud, Spencer.
What's that?
And I listen to everybody's perspectives, and I always go back to 19 years of working with WordPress. And last year was my first WordCamp US. And so the first person I met was Otto. He was one of the most pleasant people I've ever run into. And so it's like, wow, this guy's awesome, And
I actually takes it as a sign of endearment. I call him the Seth Lord of WordPress.
To this day, every time I see him, it's a handshake and good to see you. It's just that he's like this awesome dude. I always worked in WordPress from the position of, this is business. And if someone wants to have a blog site or something, they can go to .com. And if someone wants to have a real website, they can come to my agency and I'll build them one. Like, I always ran it like a business. And so when I got involved with the community and saw so many people, really sold out to the open source project and the contributions. I know people that develop plugins that take time off from their normal work and make contributions and develop work for WordPress. And so I know, intellectually, I understand that they're making a gift, but they want that pat on the back. There's a reason why you're doing something, right? You want the acknowledgement. You want to be part of the community. And as someone that's a lifetime student of leadership and a consultant with business leadership, I look at some of Matt's behavior and I go, you know what? There is room for leadership training. There's room for how to communicate more effectively. There's room but at the end of the day, I still can't help but be empathetic and think of some dude that made code, that started WordPress, that built this thing, and he watched it kind of almost grow beyond himself. And it's like it's getting taken away. And maybe he's like a little kid and he's going, this is mine. This is mine. Why is everyone trying to run my thing? But it's a community thing. It's open source. And that's the path he chose. Well, as a leader, he's got to acknowledge it.
Well, that's the problem because in my opinion, that's the problem because it is and it isn't open source. So, Katie, I don't I just don't think. I think you were. I think you keyed on. I just don't think the head of the project should go around dumping on people through Twitter, banning people, and abusing them on Twitter. Basically, I don't think it's a good look. Really, it's okay for me to be a bit narky and sarcastic, but on the other hand, the idea that a project that driving almost over 40% of all websites on the internet is going to be volunteered, that the leads aren't going to come from Automatic that have what Tom have the money, or that the leads don't come from the major hosting providers, to me is fantasy, really. That you can get, you're going to allow volunteers to be leads, to me. But on the other hand, I still think you can have a system where you can have volunteers that have an effective contribution. In some ways, I just don't understand why this mess has been allowed to continue. It doesn't seem to me to benefit anybody, really, Katie. What do you think?
No, it's just not an appropriate way to communicate, whatever your level. And he seems to just not care what people think of him. Like, he's the god, he's in power. Nobody can get him out of his role. And he just didn't seem to care. And we're moving on to Elon Musk in a minute, aren't we? And who actually has a similar attitude, where he often will just say what he thinks on social media. Actually, there's a lot of parallels there, aren't there?
It seems like somebody read him when he gets triggered. It's like somebody prompted him and said, hey, we invested all this money. You need to act like this in public because that's what we want out of the person we invested money in. Because it's like a playbook of disrespectful human behavior. You know, Machiavellian is it better to be loved or feared and stuff. But the problem is he has this open source Achilles heel. I wanted to say one last thing before we leave this in relation to what Tom said. I think the difference here is that now that we're 18 years plus down the road, the body of work of the open source plugin is self-sustaining. We no longer need anything from their side in terms of investment. All of the companies, including the hosts, if we worked out the leadership issue, could put the money to the .org side directly and have a responsible board of leadership where we just take the code and run with it. Because if you think about it, everybody who's being paid, if at all, to contribute on the .com or wherever that Audrey thing is leading to, it's going to .com with no benefit to solving the problems the rest of us have in the marketplace. That same money would solve a million problems, because one of the things we've been harping on forever is, why don't people really get paid salaries to work for Automatic? Or why don't they get paid to work at events? Why are people still painting Matt Mullenweg's fence for free when he's not like Tom Sawyer? He doesn't really make it fun for his friends or the kids. And he's beating up innocent contributors in public in a way that's quite misogynistic and evil-minded, if you ask me, or that he's on his, off his meds. So I think that's where the solution lies. Let's take it from .com Automatic Audrey, and then they'll see where the contributions are really going to a responsible, audited kind of an industry, where we all benefit from things like, imagine if all these independent plugin authors could get a fair shot in being listed in a directory instead of auto moving the chess pieces around, or instead of like money being hidden for tax benefits that nobody really sees because Matt plays a game when he's trying to beat somebody up in public. And that's nonsense. We don't have to do it anymore. There's more money for the rest of us by solving our problems that way than pretending that he really has altruistic motives. He doesn't.
Radio, I knew it was going to take up a lot of time.
That's all I got to say on that.
Yeah, fair enough. I thought it was really insightful. I don't totally agree with it, but I see where you're coming from.
That's 18 years of that.
Yeah. We're going to go for a halfway break, folks. We will be back in a few moments.
This podcast episode is brought to you by Lifter LMS, the leading learning management system solution for WordPress. If you or your client are creating any kind of online course, training-based membership website, or any type of e-learning project, Lifter LMS is the most secure, stable, well-supported solution on the market. Go to lifterlms.com and save 20% at checkout with coupon code podcast 20. That's podcast 20. Enjoy the rest of your show.
We're coming back, folks. I just want to point out we've got a great Facebook group community. Love you to join it. We continue the discussions on that. All you have to do is go to Facebook and look up WP-Tonic, the Membership Machine Show Facebook group. Join us on that, and we love you to do that. So let's go on, folks. I'm going to cut down some of these stories, but let's talk about the Apple event, which was the iPhone and the iWatch. It lasted for 90 minutes. Well, there were some bits of it, but I did think 90 minutes, it was one of the biggest yawn fests in the history of Apple. Let's start with Katie again. What was your reaction? How they filled in 90 minutes with phones I do not know, but they managed it. It was very slick, but it lasted 90 minutes, didn't it?
Well, I'm not sure I'm their target audience, because while I am an Apple and iPhone user, I'm usually a couple of versions behind, and I buy mine on eBay. I recently got the 13 on eBay, for example, because I just break them straight away. So I don't really care about the latest one. But it's interesting they don't even bother to make them look different anymore, other than some very subtle colours. Like the blue one's not even blue, really, is it? It's just... so they don't seem to be doing what they could to make people excited about the new products. It's very subtle iterations, isn't it?
No. So, Tom, what did you reckon of 90 minutes of Apple?
Oh, man, you keep choosing these controversial topics for me. I have been an Apple user since the stock was $12 a share. Okay. And believe me, I wish I bought it then, because I don't think I'd be here with you guys if I did.
That's how you do to me, Tom. Oh, dear.
So, I mean, I've been an Apple kind of fanboy for a long time, but I did read an article, and it's like, we have to sort of realize Apple is not the company that it once was. And that's not to take away from the fact that they're not doing cool stuff, and I have all Apple products, and yes, I will get the new iPhone, but it's really become, instead of a revolutionary product company when Jobs was around, it's become an evolutionary product company. And it's incremental changes. Now, I do still think they have a spirit of pushing the world forward, whereas most other hardware companies adopt the status quo. Just an example of this is like how they've been the first company to really, on a mainstream, push different, I know it's been a point of frustration for people, but different charging, USB-C. The evolution of USB connections has been driven largely by Apple and their desire to want to maybe not, revolutionize the outer experience of using an iPhone, but really make major changes from an engineering perspective with the inside, the internals. And I think a lot of times that stuff is hard to get people who are not technical to even understand what they're doing. That stuff goes way over most people's heads, what's happening inside the iPhone. So yeah, I mean, if you're looking for like the next big thing from Apple, it's probably very few and far between, unlike when Steve was around. And
well, the headset was supposed to be the big thing, wasn't it?
Right.
But I have my qualms about that.
Well, it's cool, it's awesome, but it's ridiculously expensive. I mean, and it is, because of that, it's not yet going to be widely adopted. And so therefore the coolness factor of it is going to drop down, because I think a device like that is all predicated on all of the other people you're working with have that thing, so you can collaborate and communicate in new ways.
Yeah, so Kurt, I think I was being a little bit sarcastic. Amazing, isn't it, Kurt? But 90 minutes they went on for. That was the thing that got me. There were some interesting bits, but Why 90 minutes, Kurt?
You know, I'm wondering that myself, Jonathan. The only reason I watched that 90 minutes on double speed, by the way,
that's how I watched it.
Was for the show. I'm not an Apple user myself. I'm a PC kind of guy. But gosh, Jonathan, these corporations and their propaganda about this net zero stuff and the environment, and I'm like, let me get this straight. You're mass producing lithium ion stuff dug up by slave child labor in Africa, and now you want to make this thing out of titanium, so more rare metal stuff that takes more energy to make. And you're going to talk to me about your carbon net zero footprint because you're going to donate billions of dollars to some government thing and buy your carbon credits back. I'm tired. I'm wore out as a consumer. Show me the shiny piece of stuff. How much is it? What does it do? Do you get my money or not? And I don't need 90 minutes of improving the planet and making the next generation a happier generation to know that this is just junk.
Well, yeah, I see where you're coming from, but I think saving the planet is a little bit important. But I do agree with you. It's just corporate speak, basically. So, Spencer, I don't know how they did it. I just don't know how they managed to produce 90 minutes of total fluff. Really, that was the thing. There was some, what was your take on it?
I mean, first of all, there was a spoof that some guy did on YouTube where he was kind of, all the classic Apple way Steve Jobs used to talk, and, Tim tries to talk the way too, but he was like, and to save weight, we've removed the camera. We now have a new feature. It's called Use Your Eyes. You use our patented put your phone in your pocket gesture, and then you use your eyes and your brain to remember things in full brilliant color. I mean, they've taken essentially non-improvements, turned them into something that they're going to charge more for, many of which are ironic. Of course, the USB-C, right? Like everybody was begging, can we please have USB-C? Now they say, well, you can never have it because our patented connector's better, blah, blah. Okay, fine. Europe's going to crush us, so we're going to give you the USB-C. I mean, I use Apple products. I enjoy the new MacBook Air that I replaced my MacBook Pro with, but I'm like Kurt, I use a PC as well. They're interchangeable. The thing that Apple's got is the ecosystem of using iMessage and the connectivity between your phone and the device. That's incomparable for convenience. And anybody who's communicated with that one friend or family member that comes up green in the text messages instead of blue, and you realize they're on Android, you realize how pervasive that is. But the rest of it, it's tragic. I mean, it really is, because we're really all addicted to the electronics, and there's no way they're going to sell me on the fact that, some slave labor in China is bettering my environment by making an iPhone in a factory they don't let them out of,
Yeah, I thought, Kurt, you were spot on there, really, Kurt. Let's go on to the next one. I want to get to number 4, and then we'll probably call it a day. On to the next one. Community team invites organisers to apply for hosting the next generation of WordCamps. Well, Kate, I think it's kind of linked to story 1. I think in the world of automatic, it's really important to get these WordCamps up and going again. It seems something they're really eager, but one side seems to be, because it does, linked to story 1, it doesn't really generate the people that organise these WordCamps. It doesn't instill a lot of warmth about it, does it? What do you reckon? I think also WordCamps, the regional ones, that there needs to be a slightly different direction. I just sense that. What do you think?
Yeah, they're encouraging regional organisers to experiment with the format, aren't they? So they're providing some training and guidance, but overall they want the regional ones to, like, there might be if there's an area with lots of WooCommerce people, there might be a WooCommerce one, or whatever specific area people are interested in that region. So I think they're aware that since the pandemic, the flagship ones are back with a vengeance, but the regional ones are far, far fewer than they were before the pandemic. So I think it's good that they're trying to encourage people to do more. And it kind of makes sense to encourage the diversification of different formats and things. But I have some concerns about doing that regionally, because you're going to alienate other people. If you can't even get people to go to a general WordPress event or to organize a general WordPress event in a region, why would they do something really niche? I don't know if that's the solution, but I'm all for experimenting and encouraging people to organize local events.
So, Tom, I think, isn't it just a consequence of COVID, really? I think churches, other live weekly, have seen declines in attendance in people. It's kind of, I'm not sure if you can get it back. I'm not even sure you should. I think aiming for like more national. Yeah, sorry, go on, Tom.
Well, I'm going to be transparent and vulnerable here, but I feel like I just went to WordCamp US, which I didn't see Spencer at, unfortunately. And and I will tell you, though, I had to like mentally get myself ready. And I had traveled a couple times since COVID, but my traveling, I used to travel a lot before COVID. And I have gotten, I maybe you can call it lazy or complacent or just comfortable, just virtually meeting with people. And it's like, I got to get ready. I got to buy the tickets. I got to plan the trip. And so it's like, there's a mental amount of energy that you have to fight to get back into the pattern. Now I'm going to WordCamp Atlanta in October. So I'm going to another one right off the heels of US. But I have been a long time advocate that these conferences need to mature. The WordPress space is maturing, right? As you mentioned, Automatic nearing that, massive valuation and IPO and all that kind of stuff. This space is going to turn into it's going to mature into an ecosystem, I think, eventually similar to like what Dreamforce is with Salesforce, and I think that and I've long said this, I had the fortune of being in an industry, prop tech, and worked at the first company that IPO'd in that space. Now there's multiple IPOs, billions of dollars in investment money in it. And that space, what used to be relegated as like sort of a niche industry, is huge now in the last 10 years. That is going to happen when Automatic or WP Engine IPO. Right, there is going to be a change in outside monies and perception of the space, and that is going to bring with it many other companies that are going to be investing in the WordPress space, and that is going to radically change the money that goes into these local events, because more and more people are going to want to connect with the community and the influencers and the consumers in the space, and so I think that is the future of this is going to evolve.
So, Spence, I was thinking the solution might be, instead of cities, you have state WordCamps, like you have WordCamp California, WordCamp Nevada, or, a city. I just think it's just too localized, really. But you could have the resources and have people put the money. If you had like WordCamp California, that might be worth the effort, mightn't it? I don't know. I was just putting that out, Spence.
I'm not saying that's a bad idea. I don't think that's a benefit or a solution I would look towards. I like to take what Tom just said, and I'm going to expand it back to where I was suggesting about the leadership issue. Salesforce,
I thought you might.
Salesforce's Dreamforce works because Benioff owns the IP and built a community and an energy around Carnival. If you've ever been to Dreamforce, and I have, it is not anything like you've ever seen. It's like Vegas on steroids for a weekend. Now, when I went to San Diego, and there's 400 of us at WordCamp US, I was sad, but it was very intimate. This one was much nicer because there was 2,000 plus, but it was in a venue where you really couldn't tell it was WordPress, Schmerdpress. It was just a beautiful venue. When you go to Dreamforce, you are at Disneyland. Now, what I think the idea is that let's say some of us all banded together on the .org side and decided to do exactly as Tom said. We grapple a hold of the IP that's open for all of us. We get a community of the leadership who's made the software and the things that are leading in the hosting and the, optimization, we put everybody in the same place they would be, like with the Dreamforce, when it comes to being able to market and sell and a consortium and an organized way to build something. Then we go ahead and attract the kind of interest from IPOs and so forth. Because at that stage, we can do a Dreamforce and we can pay money to bring in less privileged people from around the world to one gigantic event in America, maybe a second gigantic event in Europe. And it's a real thing versus these regional things. I've been to several of them. They're cute. But I'm like, Tom, I'm not going to schlep out of my house to go to WordCamp Austin, Texas or something, unless it's like half of the country or the world is there. It's just not worth it. But on the other hand, Dreamforce was not that much more per ticket. And even with the threat of San Francisco's violence and the, COVID before, like everybody goes there and it's like unbelievable. So
this is an interesting point. This is an interesting point. So basically, what you're saying, and this is, I hadn't really realized this, you're saying that basically the mentality has shifted to it's really going to diminish these interim WordCamps that are not of a certain threshold. And people are going to just flock to the big ones and make them bigger, like Europe and Asia and US.
Well, I'm saying that plus steroids. I'm saying what we should actively do, and I say we, those who contribute to WordPress.org, or in the ecosystem, we make the stuff, we sell the stuff, we use the stuff. We need to take leadership back, ownership back, because we're the ones who made it. We're the ones that support it. We're the ones doing the stuff in it. And if we set up that structure, what I am saying is we can create a Dreamforce environment, a marketplace like Mark Benioff has done, but we can still have all the benefits of the true purpose behind what was originally created, open source software. And that will allow us financially to afford to create gigantic twice-a-year events, once in America, once in Europe, maybe a third in Asia, that we can use the money for good purposes to bring less privileged people into a large event because we give out ticket money or we give out whatever. Right now, there's so many false premises and so much nonsense happening. And like you said, Tom, you can't really bring in the energy of an IPO when nobody is clear who owns it. Number two, there's an Achilles heel you can't ignore, that anybody can take the IP and just do a Red Hat Linux thing on WordPress. As soon as WordPress.org or .com does something clever, unless the people making it are on board to benefit, somebody else can come in and say, I'm going to take all your people and we're going to run with it ourselves. And that's an undeniable problem that I'm sure Audrey, Capital, and Automatic are aware of. That's why they're acting in such a non-logical way. They realize the liability they have is that the software is open source. Benioff can sue the hell out of anybody. Bill Gates could sue the hell out of anybody. Elon Musk could sue the hell out of anybody. Like, they all have leverage. Matt Mullenweg, and this is open source. Anybody can do whatever we want to do with it. And I think that would be really cool because I would love a Las Vegas style event where it was like the banners and the fun and the activity and everybody going wild and bringing everybody from around the world to actually meet people who, like Shah Jahan Jewel's team, he's got 500 people working for them. Let's get them all on a plane and bring them in so they can experience the customers and everything else. But going out to a regional event, who's going to do that?
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I like I said, I just saw if you had like bigger regional event. I think that going to something like WordCamp Sacramento, which was the de facto because of WordCamp US used to be based in San Francisco. It became the de facto, and then you had Orange County. I just don't see that. I just don't see it playing out, really.
It's not going to happen in today's world because they have a liability. Tom recognizes this. I think Katie can speak to this. You and Kurt and I all talk about it all the time. Their liability is they started something that wasn't monetized. They started something that wasn't licensed. Now they have a problem because that genie being out of the bottle, they have to do weird stuff that doesn't work in today's economy to try to monetize it. And that's different than the rest of us who've had to kind of figure out monetization on our own, like without a life raft. I think that's the real bigger issue. If you had code that you could sell to enterprise and you could charge a per seat fee like Salesforce, you'll be able to afford to buy $1 billion tower. But that's not what WordPress whatever is right now. It's just code that any of us can take. So it needs to be delivered in a way that enterprise could monetize and sponsors could get behind.
Well, I see where you come from. Before we go to our Nixon final story, I just feel I think Automatic could have concentrated on WooCommerce, but the problem was they didn't really have a great paid website builder, and that's like the yellow brick road, Dorothy and the yellow brick road, in my opinion. Basically,
nobody expected it to get this far.
No, that's true. But they could have, I think Automatic could have concentrated on building a great platform with WooCommerce. Look at the money Shopify is making. But I think in the end, it really depends on the major hosting companies and the major plugin shops. Have they just got fed up with Matt Mullenweg's antics? Have they got to, there's always that business balance. We don't want to rock the ship, but this guy, he's too hot to handle. He's become a bit, and because they can in the end attempt I think
it's just the deliverable mechanism is not standardized. Like when enterprise buys stuff, pays those big licenses, they're not paying for the code. They're paying for the personal support and the guarantee that stuff is going to work before they invest in it. And the architecture is part of it, but many of their technicians on the architecture side, the engineers, are agnostic who just become familiar with the code. But in WordPress, you have so many variables and so many random things happening. And there's no way for a large company other than through an agency that charges them up the wazoo to get anything close to a normal enterprise relationship. And that's where the real big money is at. If we had a standardized delivery mechanism with per seat pricing, that would draw lots of money. But there's too much uncertainty in the market right now. And that's what I think they're recognizing. This needs to be turned into a different kind of a marketplace than it is today. It can't be a flea market of 70,000 random parts. It has to be a standardized set of features that people can still add stuff to, but that have a funnel through which things get filtered and sorted out.
I think more having I see where you're coming from. Right.
I mean, it may never happen because who the hell? I mean, not everything has the IPO, but right now it's tinkerer's heaven.
Yes. All right. On to I'm going to make the final story, and that's Elon Musk, Walter Isaacson's official biography. I have got the audio book. It's very long. I still haven't got to the end of it. I'm ploughing through it. Is he the Henry Ford of the modern day? Say, Katie, what do you reckon of our beloved Musk, our beloved Elon, the owner of X? What do you reckon?
I actually quite like him. I know most people don't seem to, especially since the Twitter acquisition, but I think he is one of the few visionaries of our times. We talked earlier about Apple and how they're just evolving existing plugins and they've lost their visionary side of things that they got from Steve Jobs and that. Whereas Elon Musk has shown he's one of the few people in the world that can make these things happen, come up with these ideas and all part of a long-term strategy. So with some obsession with Mars, which I don't quite get, but is everything he does is part of a big long-term picture about allowing human civilization to continue beyond the earth, to prevent extinction, basically. And everything is about that. And I think it's incredibly clever and that we don't have many people like that in the world that have that level of vision and also the skills and the drive and everything, all the many moving parts that come together to make these things happen.
The money. The money.
Yeah. And money, which he keeps building of his own volition in order to make more and more happen with. And all these companies actually are part of that big vision, which I think is really clever. But I know most people don't agree with that at the moment.
Oh, Kurt, it kind of, it's a strange concoction. He strikes me like that villain from Blade Runner 2, doesn't it? That, you know, there's a bit of that. I forgot what the character's name. There's a, you know, there's a side of him that I find very disturbing. But there's another side that Katie's just pointed out. But there seems, and I think Walter kind of remarked about that in the interviews that he's done, that there's two sides of Elon Musk, isn't there? What do you reckon, Kurt?
I'm always amazed at how we like to pick people apart or poke fun at them or examine them or tear them up, right? I look at what Elon's done, and it's like there's people driving through tunnels under Las Vegas. You know, I was just down last year in Waco, Texas, and I thought there was an earthquake, but it wasn't. They were test firing one of those engines for SpaceX, right? And it's like all of this stuff is happening, and there's someone at the forefront of that. Now, did that Cybertruck look atrocious to me? Absolutely. Did I think it was folly? Yes. But think about all the other things that happen with Tesla, and now the whole automotive industry with this EV push that I am not a fan of is converting over to using his adapter and charging system and all of these things. He's forging a way that people will follow. And people don't like this Twitter thing. Like there's a lot of people saying they don't like Twitter, but then look at the numbers. I'm back on it. I wasn't on it before he bought it. I'm back on it. I see Katie on it all the time. I see all these people using it and using it well. So the system's working, even though we reduced it by 80% of its overhead. It's like, wow, that's pretty cool. So I don't know. I'm kind of a fan. I go with the idea of is he an innovator? Yes. Is it, to Tom's point with Apple, right? Is it like a revolution or an evolution, right? And I think that he's still in that revolutionary stage of development as a person that brings these things to the table. And I kind of admire it. Now, does that also foster weird personality tics and strangeness? And when you have billions of dollars, do you act outside of society's norms? Yeah, probably. I'll let you know when I get my first $1 billion how I act.
Yeah, I'd see where you're totally gone. The problem is that, there's the kind of eugenic thing that he dabbles with. It's his personal life, having 9 kids. That's up to him, and I couldn't care less as long as I'm not paying for them. And then you got his kind of libertarian aspects, but then which kind of annoys me because I knew a couple of people in the Nevada state legislature when Tesla got over $1 billion subsidy from the Nevada state government. I know some of the background of that negotiation, and he's really very eager to suck at the tit of subsidised state and federal government. There isn't a subsidy, but then he's all about this libertarian stuff, which is a contradiction in my mind. But that's my take on it a little bit, Kurt. But there we go. So, Tom, he strikes me as a kind of modern day Henry Ford, but Henry Ford was much, much darker than even Elon. When you look at the background, the attitudes and faults of Henry Ford, but with the genius.
Look at Thomas Edison and Tesla. Edison was electrocuting elephants in public to technology wasn't good.
What's the go daddy shooting them?
It's like, I
can't get over that. I can never forgive Go Daddy. People say, that he's no longer, but he shot bloody elephants, that geezer. What a creep.
Yes. The other thing too, I think is, it's interesting as you were talking, I think there is with these people who are in business who then venture into politics, you see it with it's Trump did this, Vivek did this, Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk. And it's like they will leverage every loophole, benefit, and whatever that they can do in their business so that their business can succeed, but then wind up having slightly different, policies when they come into
nothing matches, does it? Nothing
the public light. And I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. It's like, I would apply for a subsidy to help Convesio if there was one, you know? So it's like, I mean, I guess I don't fault him for that, but you know, we live in a world, he is a big dreamer. One of the things I'm just blown away by him is his ability to dream big ideas, like becoming an interplanetary species. And we don't have enough people dreaming big enough in the world. And so I appreciate that aspect of him.
Right. We're going to end the show now. Spencer had to go a bit early, but I think it's been a fabulous show. So, Tom, what's the best way for people to find out more about you and what you're up to, Tom?
Sure. You can go to Convesio.com. And if you have a problem child website that's not performing well or scaling well, you can email me at tom@Convesio.com and I will freely help you.
I highly recommend Convesio and Tom's team. Tom's a great guy, and if you've got a really complicated website, I've got no problem in recommending that you go over to him and his team. So, Katie, what's the best way for people to find out more about you and what you're up to?
Well, you can check out my company and our products at barn2.com, or to see my random thoughts about WordPress and business, my Twitter is Katie Keith Barn2.
And I just want to say, I hope that Barn2 continues and grows, because the quality of Katie's team and what they do as an independent code shop, they really show the quality, what's in the WordPress. So have a look at what they've got to offer. I highly recommend them. And Kurt, what is the best way people can find out more about you and what you're up to, Kurt?
Well, Jonathan, I'm really active on LinkedIn, so that's kind of my social media of choice. Kurt Van Anen, I'm the only Kurt Van Anen there, so when you find me, connect, and we'll stay connected and maybe communicate. Also, Mañana No Mas. The website is the mañananomas.com, and then I have the Mañana No Mas podcast.
And Kurt's got an enormous amount of knowledge in the e-learning, corporate learning space, so if you need a consultant, approach him. We're going to wrap it up. It's been a great show. I think we had some interesting insights. I think it was an honest and constructive discussion. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Please give your remarks on the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the WP-Tonic YouTube channel. It really helps the podcast and the channel. We'll see you next week, folks. Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening. We really do appreciate it. Why not visit the Mastermind Facebook group? And also, to keep up with the latest news, click wp-tonic.com/newsletter. We'll see you next time.